All right, welcome back to another episode of Run Mountain Peaks, the last episode of 2025. Couldn't believe it, but the year is over. We're almost on to 2026, and we got a lot to talk about today. It's been an eventful week. It is the Saturday after Christmas. Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holidays. Happy almost New Year. I had a crazy week. And so we got a lot to talk about in this episode. The big ones, I'm going to go through some of the biggest training lessons that I learned in 2025. A couple of them I think hurt a little bit to learn, but hopefully I can help you guys and don't make the same mistakes as me. Learn from my lessons, learn from other people's lessons so you don't have to learn them. But for me, apparently I had to learn them. I don't make the same mistake twice. I make it 5 times just to be sure. It's a Dan Hooker quote. Okay. So we'll do about the biggest training lessons, my biggest takeaways from this year, what I learned. It was not the year that I had in mind, but I think I learned a ton, and I think my base has widened, and it's what I needed. I didn't know that I needed this year, but it is what I needed, and feeling good going into 2026. So we'll talk through those lessons. We're going to talk about the Christmas debacle that was my Christmas week. Christmas mostly for me was canceled this year. Everybody was sick. So it started out, my sister-in-law was sick. We were going to go to their house for Christmas. COVID, didn't end up going. And then Christmas Eve, Jocelyn's family was sick. And she ended up getting sick, so their Christmas was canceled. Christmas party canceled. And then the day of Christmas, yeah, Jocelyn was sick. I just went, my uncle's family was sick. I just went to my parents. It was just the 3 of us for Christmas. Like everything, I don't know. Everybody stayed home. Everyone was sick. And to throw in the mix, in that whole mix, I took a little Christmas Eve trek to the ER. So I wasn't sick, but I doomed my own Christmas Eve. So we'll talk about the ER story. I kind of was like, I don't even really want to talk about it, but we'll talk about it. There's a couple just funny things in there. I'm totally okay, 100% good, but had a little bit of a scare there. So we'll go through what happened there. Today, I just ran Tecumseh. Holy smokes. So nice. The conditions were so good. The trails they got a little bit of snow last night, so there was a couple inches of kind of fresher stuff, but just a beautiful day. It was cold, but not too cold. It wasn't super windy. The beautiful views. The trails were awesome. I mean, ripping around. It just felt so good. I wish that I could have stayed longer out today in the mountains, but with the whole week going on, I'm kind of fighting off a little bit of a sickness, and when I have 4 days off, I've kind of done longer runs each of the days, so I try not to go over the top and just do like tons of crazy long runs. But today would have been a good day to get out more. But so I'll do a little trip report, talk about the trails, and I just had a blast, and yeah, I love it up here. In the winter, I mean, the mountains are awesome to get out to, but in the winter, sometimes it's like that extra kick of just fresh air, good views. So had a good day, to say the least. What else we got? We're gonna talk about some Christmas movies. I watched Charlie Brown's Christmas kind of for one of the first times. I thought it was kind of funny. It's a couple takeaways from that. I've seen the Charlie Brown stuff before, but haven't really dove deep. So that was fun to watch. And a couple other Christmas stories I like watching. I'm gonna do a financial lesson from 2025. I'll throw this in at the end. I don't know. It's like, who's gonna listen to financial advice for me? But I had a financial lesson. So like I said, just learning from me in this episode. Racing during the holidays, I'll talk about that quick. Christmas shopping, holy smokes. I mean, the hardest thing to do when you wait to the last minute. And then we'll do a little Thanksgiving story. And then what's next for the podcast in 2026? We'll talk more about that. So that's what we got today. That is what is on the agenda. So we got a lot of stuff to cover. And I guess we'll just start with the ER story. So what happened? Why'd you go to the ER on Christmas Eve? It's like the classic, like, I can't believe we're here right now. But yeah, essentially, I was on Christmas Eve was having some good chest pains, and it got to the point I was like, I don't know, like I don't know what's going on. I think I just got to go see somebody, and obviously everywhere's closed on Christmas Eve except for like the ER. So went to the ER. And so the chest pains. I'll do a little bit of how I got to where I got to. So um this year I've kind of developed these chest pains on and off, kind of intermittently a few times over the year. And at the beginning of the year, I also kind of was getting allergies worse than normal. And so I kind of thought it was probably allergies. And so I started taking like an antihistamine. The allergies went away, which honestly was awesome. For so long this year, I was just feeling a little bit sick all the time and not knowing what was wrong. And it was allergies. Started taking an antihistamine, and it pretty much went away, and it like all good. And I was like, it was just such a relief to just feel normal. So that was something I kind of struggled with for a while this year. Finally got that figured out, all good. And then this fall though, the chest pains kind of came back. They're kind of I should have logged what was happening more, like when I was feeling them, all what happened that day, what time of the day, but I really didn't. But I couldn't really pinpoint what was causing them. It was kind of I feel like at the beginning I was more describing it as like a tightness of the chest. So maybe it felt like I could take full breaths, but it kind of felt like a little bit of pressure on my chest. And then sometimes it would be pain, like usually it was all around the sternum area. But then sometimes it would kind of go left to right a little bit, and I don't know what it was. And so this whole year I've been trying to figure out what is going on. Is it the allergies? I mean, I started taking the pills, everything else went away, but I have the chest pains. Like, is it still some lingering allergy? Is it stress or anxiety? Like, I had a pretty, busy year. I had a lot of things going on. I definitely had some high stress moments, but this has never manifested itself like that. I feel like I'm always kind of like stressed or just like have a million things going on. So it was kind of weird that this year it kind of just started manifesting it in the chest. So I kind of been exploring that, like trying to figure out, all right, what is stressing me out? Let's get things off my plate. Let's figure out what's going on. And that kind of didn't lead anywhere. And so earlier this week, I pretty much packed up a bunch of bags and I left my apartment because I was like, I think it's something I'm allergic to in my apartment. Something's going on. I don't know what it is. It's clearly not the fall or summer allergens that everyone has like outdoors. I think it's indoors, like a dust or a mold or something. My apartment doesn't get good ventilation. I'm on the third floor. It kind of stinks. So I need to do a test and like, is it my apartment that's making me sick? Because I'm in the same complex, but I moved buildings earlier this year, kind of a little bit before this all started happening. So I'm like, oh, maybe it's that. Maybe it is. I've just been living in this place that's kind of making me sick. So I was like, all right, I'll just go stay with my parents for a little bit, which, see, I mean, not ideal. They had like, actually, it was ideal because, they had a room, like it's nearby, so it was very lucky that I had a place close by that I could go to. But just a new routine. I had half of my stuff there, half of my stuff at the apartment. I mean, I'm doing a bunch of things every day, so I'm all over the place. And so it wasn't ideal just for my life. I was like, all right, it'll figure out the allergy stuff. And basically, the chest pains just got worse this week. And on Christmas Eve, I was like, I made an appointment a few weeks ago and I had a follow up for like 2 weeks or something. I had a follow up coming up soon, but I was like, I don't know if I can wait to see somebody. Like, this is not stress. I don't know if it's really now. Like, there's something wrong, like something inflamed in my chest. And on Christmas Eve, I was very much like thinking about it and analyzing it. And it was that day more like my heart. And I'm like, oh God. I don't know. Then, once your heart, you kind of start going down a rabbit hole. I mean, I've been still running and I did my best workout ever on this week, earlier this week. So I'm like, my heart is working, but something is wrong. And I just I got too much stuff going on. I need to go figure it out. So let's go to the ER on Christmas Eve. So that was like the whole, and I knew I wasn't dying. I didn't think I was having a heart attack, but I just wanted to I wanted to figure out, I'm sure they have tests that they can do on my heart and my lungs. Like, is it something structural, physical, muscular, skeletal. I don't think it's just stress. I don't think so. I just needed more answers because I was just losing it. And Christmas is already canceled. So I'm like, let's really cancel Christmas. So luckily enough, Jocelyn came with me. So it wasn't just a solo mission. But we go to the ER, and I was like, I don't know if there's going to be nobody here or nobody's staff. So it's going to be super slow. We're going to be here forever. We had to wait for a while, checked in there. I mean, I feel like when you say chest pains and like your heart's hurting, they kind of give you some priority. But I go in there, they do my vitals, they do an EKG, and they do blood tests like right immediately as I step in the door, which is good. And I think the EKG came back clear. Actually, I didn't even ask, but I assumed because they didn't rush me somewhere else, it was fine. And interestingly enough, actually, one more symptom I'll throw in. I got an EKG 3 weeks ago when I had an appointment, and it was all good. But the one thing they did say was you had an irregular heartbeat during it, like something pulsed before it needed to pulse or whatever. And one of the other symptoms that kind of was getting me more frightened about the heart thing was I was having heart palpitations like at night sometimes. And I don't know if that's like I'm just kind of thinking about my heartbeat and then you like are really focused on it, or I don't know. So like all of these factors, but the EKG was good. I think the blood work was fine. It was just a regular blood panel, so I think it was fine. But then I had to wait for a while and get a room. But I will say they ran regular blood panels, but every time I get blood drawn, I'm just like, give it back. Like I don't want you to take that blood volume, my hemoglobin, my red blood cells. Like I work so hard, trying to continue heat training, doing all, obviously the running stuff. Like I optimize everything to have maximum oxygen carrying potential in my blood, and you're just taking it out of me with no grief. So that's kind of how I feel when they're taking blood. They took out 5 vials. I was like, you just double dip on one of those maybe? But obviously they had to do it. I don't think it really affects you too much, but I know it can't take, they say the blood volume comes back fairly quickly, but I think the red blood cells can take a couple weeks to come back. So it probably only, is like 1%, reduces your oxygen carrying capacity. But hey, 1% is huge. I wake up every day and try to get a 1% in. So yeah, didn't like how much blood they took, but it all came back fine. And then, there was no emergency really from there. And then I saw the doctor, or I got a room, and they get to give you a couple nurses, ask all the questions before I saw the doctor. And the first thing about the room was they hooked me up. So I had like the EKG going still. They hooked me up to your like heart monitor, the little screen, the doo-doo. And immediately this heart radar or whatever you call it starts like beeping like pretty loud. And at first I didn't really know, like, I don't know what it was, but then we kind of realized like it was just us, that it was like an alarm going off on the thing. And it was because I have like my heart rate was going too low when I was just sitting there. And that's why it kept going off. And yeah, like I think after the second time it went off and I realized that, I was just like, that's awesome. I mean, that just makes my day. Like, I'm a runner, low heart rate. They're like, oh yeah, it's all right. Your heart's just really strong and it's beating really slow. I'm like, what'd you say? No. So yeah, that was beeping. So I thought that was a victory for me, maybe, at least a good sign for the heart. But then, yeah, they monitored me. They took an extra heart. They did like an extra heart test that they had to do once and then do it again in an hour to test the strain on your heart to make sure, I don't know, nothing was going on. So they did that. So there's more blood. I'm thinking, okay, I'm not liking this, but they did that. And then they took a chest x-ray. And basically that was all the stuff that they did. And then basically a doctor came in and said, structurally everything looks good. Your lungs are good. There's no fluid, no masses. Your heart's good. There's no stress on your heart right now. Your blood works fine. Your heart rate's low. You are there's a few things it could be, but you probably just have heartburn right now. And I'm like, what? They were like, yeah, there are a few different causes. So the one that the doctor said is probably the most likely is just reflux, like some sort of heartburn or reflux that's inflaming your whole chest cavity. It can cause the pressure and it can irritate things in it. And I'm like, oh, I don't really eat a ton of crazy foods. Like I eat pretty plain foods. I'm not a super spicy kind of person. Like I eat the same stuff every day. I've never had GI or stomach problems. So this is kind of weird, but they're like, yeah, I mean, it can happen for many different reasons. We don't really know why it's happening. And at first I was very strongly against it. Like I never even thought of this. I mean, I could have just taken a Tums, and I came to the ER on Christmas Eve and I could have just popped a Tums. What are you talking about? Um, but apparently, yeah, all the symptoms that I was talking about can be caused from that reflux. And I talked to a couple of people that actually said, yeah, I've had the same kind of thing. So I was like, okay. And when she was explaining it, I didn't want to say this part, but when she was explaining it, she was like, yeah, like your esophagus. It's kind of like an esophagus problem. The base of your esophagus has like a sphincter that if it's not working right, it can let stomach acid through. Even if you're not eating spicy foods, even if you're not like feeling it in your throat, it can get a little bit through and just irritate everything. And it can cause all the symptoms that you have. And I was like, wow, I did not know that. But she kept just kind of describing it because I was asking a lot of questions. And by like maybe the seventh or eighth time she said sphincter, I I almost lost it. For 0.1 second, I almost lost it. And I was like, no, reel it back in. Do not be a child right now. And I reeled it back in. But yeah, so I don't know. I have a sphincter that's not working right. Should I cut that? Nah, we might leave it in. I don't know. Yeah, don't be a child, Andrew. But I said the joke on here. So yeah, so I think that's probably what it was, she said. The other things it could be was like some sort of inflammation of my lung tissue or like the cartilage around my sternum where your ribs kind of connect. So that's kind of like a muscular skeletal thing, and it's not dangerous. So it's just uncomfortable. And a lot of doctors see this and they just don't really know what it's caused. For whatever reason, your body just starts to produce a reaction for these things, and you just haven't worked through the inflammation. We could give you, I forget what they said, some sort of injectable ibuprofen. Like they already had my IV tube all hooked up for the blood test and stuff. They're like, we can give you an injection. I was like, is that gonna fix it, or is that just gonna like alleviate the pain? They just said it's just gonna make you more comfortable. I was like, all right, it's not killing me, so I'd rather not take it. But that could help for that thing. And then the third thing, it could be an allergen, something that I've been chronically exposed to and has been just irritating me for a long time and giving me problems. And I don't think that one's off the table, but she did say that's probably less likely. So I don't know. I still think like it started with my allergy stuff. It started with the new apartment. Who knows? But so I'm gonna do some tests to try to figure out which of it is. But moral of the story is it was nothing major. It was just just some sort of minor thing that I didn't know could cause really chest pains. So yeah, I pretty much I pretty much wasted Christmas Eve going to the ER, getting hooked up, doing all these tests, and the doctor came in and said to me, okay, we got you a baby aspirin. I cut it in half so it doesn't upset your stomach, but this should make your chest feel better. I'm gonna give you a Tums. It's cherry flavored. If you don't like cherry, you can have a strawberry. That might that might help you out. And we got a coloring book for your ride home. You have just heartburn. Go home. So that's kind of how it felt in the ER leaving. But I will say mentally, it did help me cross off some of the things that could be causing me chest pains. I don't think it's stress. I don't think it's anything serious. It's just something minor that I got to keep working through, and so be it. I can still train. I'm still been running. I still have had some decent runs this week. So feeling good and feeling much better because it was something that kind of like really has been bugging me for all year, and I feel like I'm finally starting to get some answers. And I hadn't seen anybody. I'm finally starting to see doctors, so I still have a couple follow-up appointments. They gave me a medication to try to reduce the stomach acid, so I'm gonna try it for a month, and then I really don't want to take that long term, but at least that will tell me if it is acid reflux. Um, yeah, so that was the ER story. And oh, one last thing. I did Christmas Eve. My sister lives down south, so I gave her a little FaceTime because I didn't know what she would be doing. And she picks up and I'm in the bed. or the room or whatever. She's like, Andrew, stop. What is going on? Stop. I'm like, hello, Merry Christmas Eve. She's like, stop. What is going on? And as soon, like 2 seconds after calling her, the heart machine was in the background and it started beeping really loud. And it's from her perspective, it could have looked like, this is it. His heart just stopped. It is out of here. And she was like, oh my God, what's going on? And I was like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I just need a Tums. So I thought that was the last funny thing from the ER story. But yeah, I mean, if you're having any of these problems, maybe this helps you, saves you a trip to the ER. But that's what it was. And there we go. Up next. We'll go to the next topic. Next thing we'll talk about the winter trail report. So I talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but the Mount Tecumseh, so nice. And this is going to lead into some of the training lessons for the year. But yeah, it'll lead into it. But Mount Tecumseh was so nice today. The trail conditions, it has a solid base. I mean, Tecumseh is one of the most popular hikes. A ton of people do it. It's closest down south. A lot of people who are doing the hike a 4K every day. That's an easy one to go get on like days that you're busy. So it gets packed out really, really good. And so it had a really good solid base, snowshoe base. And then most of the rocks and roots were covered up. Maybe in the first quarter mile, there was a few, but after that, it's very, very smooth. And then there was about maybe 2 inches of fresh powder from the night before. I started at 10. And so that it was all packed down from people in front of me, but it was so beautiful. I mean, it's not quite the highway that if it melts a little bit, it gets packed down, and then the next day you come out, it's frozen. It wasn't quite that because it did snow recently, but it's getting close to that. And these conditions in the winter are just so nice. Like you can just have the best days. Like I said, I wanted to be out there all day today. It was just gorgeous. You can rip up, you can rip down, you get good views. Was just a good time out there. And the one thing I had in my head, which we'll talk about, is when these winter conditions get good, bombing downhills is extremely fun. And I've talked about the winter downhills, Strava stuff, bombing downhills before. So I don't know I don't know. That was one of the videos. I think it's probably in the title, one of the podcasts that if you want to go listen to, but it's fun to bomb downhills when it is that smooth. And in the back of my head going up today, I was like, ooh, this would be a good day to bomb this downhill. I don't think it would be the best conditions, but it was it was really, really close. So what I think about doing fast downhill efforts in the winter, the fastest for certain scenarios is going to be that paved highway, no, it's all hard, no fresh snow. You can just rip on that. I think those in some conditions are the best. But the conditions we had today also, I think, can be close to the best. So it's not the fastest if you're going uphill or if you're going on flats because you lose a lot of that power in the beach sandy kind of snow in that top inch. But when you're doing a steep descent, I actually like a little bit of powder. Like I don't like it to be rock solid on a really steep descent. I kind of want a little bit of a give so I can kind of, you're almost skiing down. You're running, but you're kind of like sliding. And it's super fun. It's the closest thing that I get to skiing. And it's really, really fun to do. And I think that give helps you kind of take quick steps. And because if it's really sticky, you can't move as fast because it's so steep. You just like suck into the mountain you could just like tumble or trip easier. So you kind of almost want that slide down on the steeps. But if I were to pick a mountain to do a fast downhill on today, I wouldn't pick a mountain like Tecumseh because the first mile, it's not super flat, but there are flatter sections. And so those sections, you're not going to be able to run as fast as a paved highway. But that steep 1,500 feet, that's probably as fast as you can get today. So what I would do is I would pick a mountain that has a consistent grade, no descents on the climb. So you want something that's straight up the whole way because any little bit of climbing on your descent is going to slow you down, just make the time a little bit slower because it's just beach sand. And for me, I would pick something steeper that you can kind of slide the whole way down. So maybe like maybe like up to a Liberty, right? Like that would be one that kind of jumps to mind. Obviously, there are some ones in the Prezzies, but you wouldn't want to do a Garfield because that's a lower grade. I think you want that grip if you're doing a lower grade or flatter stuff, but you just want something super steep. Maybe like a tri-pyramid from the Kank, like up Pine Bend. You could go really fast down that steep climb. I don't know if if the segment's the full descent, but that would be really fast. It would be fun to do. Um, yeah, stay on the steeper stuff and avoid any dips as you're going up, and you could rip on a day like today. But I did not rip down Tecumseh, and that leads me into some of the biggest training lessons from 2025. So the first lesson is don't don't run with your ego when you're not racing. When you're out on a training run, do not run with your ego. And a lot of the time that just means don't bomb crazy descents for no reason. Because I definitely got burned this year, unfortunately, on one of those. So in June, I did the Lodge to Dodge. I was as fit as I've been. I was feeling so good in the mountains. Like it just moving in the mountains felt really, really smooth and easy. Um, I recovered. I put in my biggest training block before Lodge to Dodge. I recovered really well after Lodge to Dodge. All things was good. I had big plans this year, a couple big plans this year after Lodge to Dodge. That was the A goal for the year, so we got that done, which is good. But I had some other big plans, but I didn't quite get there. And one of the things that happened this year is 3 weeks after Lodge to Dodge, I go out and started ripping a tri-pyramid loop, and I busted my ankle coming down. And I think it's tough, and maybe we'll talk about this first, but after I do a big effort, there's kind of, obviously, especially if it goes well, you're kind of feeling good, you worked really hard, you're banged up, so you kind of take it easy for a little bit. I take a week off, no running at all. No even training at all. I just eat big. I try to recover. I get my life together. Um, and do just, short walks, get outside, recovery stuff. Then I kind of start biking for a week, and usually on a week, I try to avoid running that second week after, just because give your body a little break from the impact, but maybe a couple runs, but mostly biking. And then that third week, I pretty much get back into training, and I think that's really has helped me come back from a lot of these big efforts and not overdo it too quick. And I was on that path. But in that second week into that third week, I just start mentally spiraling. I think it's actually a phenomenon, like the post-race blues, the post-race depression. It really, I don't know, it hits me hard for some reason. And I think there's a few factors that go into it. I think one, your every effort that I do, no matter how well it goes, after a few days, I just start not like poking holes in it, but I just overanalyze it, and I'm like, this wasn't as good as it could have been. What were the mistakes? This isn't as competitive as I thought it was. I didn't do as good as I really could have. I think it's super hard to 100% maximize your potential in every race, but yeah, you just kind of start getting down on yourself about the effort. So that's kind of one thing that I definitely do, which is you try not to do it, but I end up doing it. And then the other thing is you're not really losing fitness. You are a little bit, but you think you're losing fitness way faster than you actually are. And so you're like, I haven't ran in 2 weeks. I just started biking. I suck at biking. I'm going so slow right now. I have no energy. My legs feel crappy. My heart rate's high. Sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low. But, you know, oh man, I just did a huge training block. So I'm not as fit as I was. When you do huge volume, you're not as quite as top end speed before a big ultra. So it's like I haven't really trained speed in like a month or two. And now I'm just taking time off. I was so fit, the effort went good, and I'm never going to get back to where I was. And I don't know if this is a phenomenon because I started running more recently, and I've really gained fitness. Every year I've been getting fitter and fitter, which is awesome. But it's almost like every time I have a really good run or I'm the fittest I've been, I have a great workout, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm never gonna get here again. This is it. Like, I'm not a genetic freak. I haven't been running for 20 years. That was it. Like, I'll never get back to it," which is not true. But that's kind of how you feel. You're like, "Oh, I'll never be that fit," especially when you're in the hole of recovering, you haven't been training, right? And so you kind of start spiraling in that sense. And then third off, once you start running, you just feel horrible. Every run feels so hard, even though your heart rate's lower, because you just have a lot of fatigue that you're carrying still. It all kind of just comes together and it puts you in a bad headspace. At least it does for me. And so sometimes in that bad headspace, you go out on a trail, and if you're finally feeling a little bit good, you're like, "Oh, I need to go hard. Like, I need to see if I still got it." So that's what I did 3 weeks after my big effort. And I was just it was 4th of July weekend. I think I had a good weekend planned, and I start doing the tri pyramid loop. Just gonna take it chill, and then I start ripping for no reason, and I ripped up, and I was doing better than I thought. And the thing is, too, this is where it kind of tricks you. You don't feel as good as you are. The training's hard, especially like your Z1, Z2 training after a big effort, but your heart rate is usually lower because when you do a big effort, you actually get a little boost of fitness for a small period of time because you just stress your body. It's like, we got to figure out how to do this better. And then your heart rate can be lower if you're carrying fatigue. And then if you just eat a bunch of food for 2 weeks and don't run, you kind of are like carbing up. Your glycogen stores are all filled. You're getting all prepped. So when you do eventually start feeling good after a couple runs, you feel more normal. You're almost prepped to feel like good. And so you kind of, when you finally have that breakthrough, you're like, "Oh wow, I actually feel good. I'm gonna try to rip this and show that I still have the fitness." So that's kind of what I did, and went up the tri pyramid pretty good and started going down. I go down the south tri pyramid slide hard when I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this, my body, but go down hard, no issues. And then I get to the section that's, what is it, the easy, smooth, flat out of the tri pyramids. And like a minute into that section, that easy running, there was a big log across the trail. And I just go to jump over it, like while running like a 6 minute pace. And I go to just, yeah, basically hurdle it, trying to be fast or whatever, and I roll my ankle as I go to hurdle. So I'm like running really fast and I'm pushing off my ankle, and it just cracked my ankle. So I had a really bad roll. And and I was kind of like, you're at the lowest point in a few weeks, but here you're ready to start building, and I just colossally screwed up. Like, I knew, oh man, I need to be getting back to it now. Now I have this ankle sprain, which ankle sprains can be horrible, can take forever to heal. And it's like, oh, what did I do? I stopped for like 5 minutes. I was so upset. And eventually I gathered myself and I ran out hard because I was like, it's a pretty good time. Like, I might as well do it. But every step was super painful, which was probably stupid to run out hard on that. But it's just, yeah, it was the ego. I had no reason. There was no reason for me to go that hard 3 weeks after an effort. And I went too hard and I busted my ankle. And it's still something I'm trying to work through 5, 6 months later now almost. A couple months after, I had a little bit of a reroll, which kind of sets you back. Like, you're more prone to rerolls when I was feeling good again. So yeah, it's really been something I've struggled with. And the thing that I think about hard efforts, you want to save them for races, you want to save them for big efforts or a planned fast effort. Usually when you just go out on a whim and try to run really fast, unless you feel like you're really prepped, it's not worth it. I mean, the risk of bombing down these technical mountains is for no reason, like just to go fast one day, is not worth it most of the time. Like, I will, I'm not saying never rip down hills, but if you're not planning it, if there's really no objective or motive to go super hard, don't do it, because you crack your ankle good once and or get hurt good once and you missed months of training. It's like, that is it. And you hear and I've heard a lot of older runners, like let's say in their 30s or even 40s plus, say, yeah, I was more, brave when I was younger. I would do a lot of this, but now I don't really rip those downhill stuff. It's not worth it. And I'm telling you guys, it is not worth it. If you have plans to get fitter, get stronger, increase your volume, progress as a runner over years, don't go out on a random day after planning an easy run and rip it downhill unless you feel amazing. Like, it's just not worth it. Even if the conditions are really good today. Oh, this crown is kind of soft. Oh, whatever. You gotta be careful when you're bombing downhills. And so that's a big lesson that I learned. I am definitely, and I feel like I'm a really strong downhill runner. And I think technical downhill is just like the best skill set that I have. And so kind of in my head, I'm still gonna do that stuff, but you just gotta pick and choose and be really smart about it because the risk is always there. And for me, I am not even close to where I want to be, and so I gotta make sure I'm training consistently. So don't let the ego get the best of you. Because when you bomb it, especially a downhill, you need to treat it like you are doing a 1 rep max if you're like a weight lifter. You do not train for a couple weeks or you've been slacking and just go out on a whim and throw up a 1 rep max. That's how these power lifters get hurt. You need to be working for a few weeks, prepping for a very hard effort because when you're recovering from a long ultra, especially in my case, your ligaments haven't been getting those fast, strong, like high load to the tendons, to the bones, to everything, and the legs just weren't prepped for it. So I don't think it was that I was running reckless on the most technical stuff. I was totally fine. It was just my body was not prepared for those speeds yet because I hadn't run that fast in months, and my body was just in absolute shambles recovering from a 24-hour ultra. So yeah, in those situations, you got to be smart. Pick your downhill bombs. I love bombing downhill, but make sure you're doing it smart and don't get out on a trail and be like, today maybe I need to do this to prove. Don't run with your ego on a training run. I feel like lots of people will go out and just bomb trails for no reason, and then they'll DNF a 50K. Like, when you're racing, when you have a big effort you've been working for, that is when you go as hard as you can, leave it all out there. Don't go as hard as you can and leave it all out there on a whim, on a supposed to be easy run, on a stupid Strava segment, because you're gonna get hurt and you're gonna wind up like me. This year, I wouldn't say it was ruined, but my initial plans for this year were definitely ruined post June. But luckily, I think this was the year that I needed. So it's like I had plans, but you'll always find your path no matter what your plans are. So that was the first biggest lesson of the year. And the second biggest lesson of the year for me, which I actually learned from rolling my ankles, so maybe this is something that good I got to learn this, is you need to be focused on your weaknesses. You should not be avoiding your weaknesses. Now, I think this goes for anything in life, but especially running. I think a lot of people, and me included, what I was doing for a long time was just avoiding my weaknesses. So for me personally, I definitely think my weakest areas are I don't do a ton of short road running stuff. My economy's not good, and my top end fitness, like my anaerobic fitness, is not where I wish it would be. And so I never do 5Ks. I never did track workouts. I never did all of these things because I know it was a weak area, and I was like, I don't want to, I don't want to go in a road race and just get dominated by whoever. And then the other weak area for me was kind of like that anaerobic fitness, like I was talking about, but just strength and power. So uphill running for shorter distances. I think my engine's really good and my muscular endurance is really good, but I think those shorter 5, 10, 20, 30-minute efforts uphill was something that I always kind of shied away from or didn't do too much of because it wasn't my strong suit. But I promise you, if you start working on your weaknesses and make those your number one priority, I wouldn't do it right before a big race, but in general, on a regular, if you're just training regularly, trying to get better, you need to focus on your weaknesses first. Because for me, when I'm increasing my fitness and I'm getting stronger running uphill, everything else that I'm good at gets better. My downhill running gets better because my heart rate's lower and I just feel super strong on the downhills. It feels easier and I can still use my technical skills for long distance efforts. It just feels easier to go for longer, which just makes, my muscular endurance and long distance even better. It makes eating better. And so, how did I kind of face my weaknesses this year? Well, I couldn't run that much. I couldn't run hard downhills and I couldn't run a ton of running volume. So I had to just bounce my head on that Stairmaster, doing Stairmaster workouts, doing uphill workouts. Because on the rolled ankle, when I was recovering, the uphill is just less impact. So I could do those. And so I said, all right, I wanted to do a couple longer efforts at the end of the trail season, but instead I did a few hour or less, half hour to an hour uphill, mountain goes. And I surprised myself. I don't think I had any like insane times, but it was much stronger than I thought I could do. It was on lower training. It was on not that much running and lower overall volume. And I was like, wow, if I really keep focusing on my uphill, get back to regular volume, like I could go so much faster on this stuff. And it just kind of opened my eyes to, oh wow, it's not that I can't get super fit or I can't be good uphill. I just need to work on it really, really hard. And I think a lot of people, if you're just somebody who just goes out and just does a ton of slow miles, you do a crazy volume, but you kind of don't ever do speed workouts or you kind of don't ever push yourself on an uphill, I think you're missing out on potential gains both from the physical aspect and the mental, because I think you'll surprise yourself. Whatever you've been avoiding, go do it, and I guarantee you'll surprise yourself if you start working on it. And so that may be fitness, that may be uphill stuff, it may be technical, it may be downhill. Maybe you're a road runner with really good fitness, but every time you come to the mountains, you can't run on rocks as good as other people. I would be focusing more of your downhill running and more of your running on technical trails. Because once you get better on technical trails, then you can use your fitness and you're like, wow, I'm smoking fast and I can run on these rocks. So if it's technical, if it's downhill, you should be doing more downhills. You should be working, all right, maybe is it your downhill muscles aren't as strong? Get in the gym and do some quad stuff. Do some downhill focused workouts. Just whatever your weakness is, you got to do it. If it's eating, if it's nutrition, if you're having problems with nutrition on your races, every single weekend long run is a chance to work on your nutrition. Buy a new fueling strategy and try it. All of these things, but it's like, I don't really like eating, so I just eat the things that work for me. You have to look at the thing you've been avoiding, look at your weaknesses, go at them. Make those your strengths, because then you're going to be just off the charts. And I think that's something I've kind of started to lean into this year and appreciate for myself. And it's really helped me. And I think it's opened my eyes. It's given me more confidence. And yeah, I think it's a great thing to do, even if it's uncomfortable. And I wouldn't do it all the time. Like I wouldn't be like, Andrew, go run road races every weekend and just get smoked. But mix it in a little bit, work on it on your own. So it's not like you have to just go race on something you're not comfortable with all the time, but work on it on your own. And over time, it's going to benefit you. I promise. And so, yeah, that was definitely a big takeaway for me. This year. And the other thing too is working on your weaknesses. No, I guess this will be a new lesson. Third lesson. If you're not feeling 100%, don't not go. I think a lot of people miss opportunities because they're not going after something because, oh, my training wasn't quite right, or, oh, I wasn't quite fit, or, oh, I didn't feel as good, so I just kind of scrapped it. I think there's a lot of people nowadays that, and you hear it, there's a lot of people in the ultra world that show up maybe fatigued from a recent effort, so maybe undertrained or a little bit carrying more fatigue, like a Courtney Dauwalter going to UTMB after Hard Rock, after Western States. You see people that show up and they're a little bit sick, like a Tara Dower. I feel like has done that before. Had some bad races, but had some excellent races. And I think a lot of the times you get tricked into, I'm not really at my peak, so I don't want to do that, or I don't think I should do it, you need to do it, because a lot of the times that stuff is mental, and you're just counting out the opportunities to learn something. The final product of whatever you're trying to do is going to be years in the future. And so even though you're like, oh, I wish this effort goes 100% and I'm at this level, it's probably not going to. But if you go out, you learn something from it, you're going to use that in the coming years. And again, this is not like you have to race every weekend, but you need to put yourself out there and be a little bit uncomfortable more than you think, because you're going to learn more things and it's all just going to come and help you in the future. And maybe that kind of ties into like the what I was just saying, kind of avoiding your weaknesses. But just because something doesn't feel great, if you're not going to get hurt or you're not going to get sick from it, and if this has been a goal, go do it no matter how you feel. And sometimes you're going to really surprise yourself and have amazing performances that maybe you didn't have. Like, this is one of the things that Lost to Dodge. I was feeling sick. I had allergies and I didn't really know it, and I was just feeling sick before it. And in my head, you kind of have that, should I go? Should I bail? Should I wait a little bit? I just went and I had an awesome day out there. And so, yeah, don't ever not go because you're not feeling quite like you could put on the best effort. Always go. You're always going to learn something. And then the last lesson from this year is going to be consistency is always going to win. Whether this is endurance training, I mean, especially endurance training, there are no shortcuts. You have to put in the work every single week for a long, long time. And like I said, that's making sure you stay healthy. That's making sure you get after training. But for me this year, what I learned is strength training and heat training. You need to be consistent. The best strength program, the best heat training program is whatever you can sustain without kind of feeling like it's too much stress for 52 weeks. I feel like there are lots of studies that you hear on the best ways to heat train, the best ways to strength train for runners. And those studies are great and they have great findings. I read them all. I try to listen to them all. I don't read them all. I try to hear thoughts on them all. I try to stay up to news and all that stuff. But if you cannot do a strength or a heat training program, I wouldn't say 52 weeks, but every single month of the year, and ideally 52 weeks out of the year, then it is probably not going to benefit you as much as a consistent program would. Yes, there's heat protocols where you just do 5 straight days in the sauna, and then you have to sauna 2 to 3 times a week to keep the volume in that study. And it's like a lot of people either do it or don't do it. But I really think if you can only get to the sauna once a week for 52 weeks, that's going to outperform that perfect protocol for 3 or 4 months out of the year. Same thing with strength training. There could be you could have a perfect strength training program, but if your running volume, your life, your stressors avoid you from doing it 52 weeks, you're going to get some gains and then you're going to lose some stuff. The better program would have been squat 5 sets a week every week. And on weeks you feel you can do more, do a little bit more. And on weeks you feel you have to do a little bit less, just do those 5 sets of squats. And that is going to outperform the perfect routine that you do for 3 or 4 months. And I think runners, it's like, you're not trying to get like a better power lifter. You're not trying to be the best sauna goer. But so it's sometimes like, I don't need it. I just need to make sure that I run. That's the biggest thing. But I think these things are important. And the best way to utilize them is whatever you can do consistently. And some of the people follow these studies on heat protocol, altitude protocol, and they overdo it. Oh my God, how can I be forgetting his name? The big Norwegian cyclist. I love this guy. How could I forget his name? Sometimes on this podcast, I just forget information. But anyway, Christian Blumenfeld. I'm so sorry. Him and his team, one year at the Olympics that he kind of bombed and really didn't do good, he said that they thought they overdid the altitude stuff. They did too much work up at altitude and they neglected the higher power outputs you can get at sea level. And that's because they were looking at the latest studies saying if you altitude train all the time, your blood volume is going to be better and you're going to carry more oxygen. Yes, that is true. But if it prohibits you from doing other things, that is not best. So Be consistent in whatever you do. This goes for anything in life. Consistency wins out a million times out of a million. Um, so that was the last lesson from the year. So some of those lessons, hopefully they're helpful. Hopefully you can take some. Really learn from me. Try to learn from me and don't make the mistakes that I made. But sometimes you just need to go and learn for yourself. And that's okay too, honestly. That is okay too, because I've definitely done that a lot. And it's the best way you learn. Like I've learned some things that I will never forget from this year. Um, so those are the big lessons for 2025. What else? We got a few more things, a few more kind of more fun stuff. So, the Charlie Brown Christmas movies. So some of the best Christmas movies. I'm not gonna actually rank them or list them, but I just want to touch on a few. The Charlie Brown one I thought was awesome. I have seen it before. I remember watching it when I was a kid, but I wasn't fully up on the Charlie Brown stuff. So I watched the Charlie Brown Christmas movie and really liked it. And some of my takeaways: everyone is so mean to Charlie Brown in that movie. Everyone's just calling him an idiot, saying he can't do anything right. He's just like, God, I can't do anything right. The whole thing, it's funny in a sense, but it's also kind of sad watching that. But I was kind of getting a kick out of it. I was getting a kick out of them dancing on that dance floor, whatever the song was. You got Pig Pen which, yeah, Jocelyn was telling me his name's Pig Pen. With all the dust and stuff, you got all those people dancing. There's one guy getting down on some moves. First off, Charlie Brown just being like, cut, cut, cut. Dude, when you got people dancing like that and jamming out like that, you got to let it go. They had some crazy good moves, and he was being a little bit, bossy, which some people don't like Charlie Brown, but, no, I can't do anything right. And then the Charlie Brown Christmas tree, that was basically me and Jocelyn picking our Christmas tree. I was like, wait, yeah, you just get a skimpy little tree. But you can make it beautiful. And they made it beautiful. And I thought the icing on the cake at the end of that was, one of the last lines in the movie is, everyone's kind of nice. They decorate the tree. Charlie Brown comes out and he's like, oh, wow, guys. And they're all kind of like happy. It's a good, happy ending. But one of the last lines in that movie is, Charlie Brown, he's still a blockhead, but he picked a pretty good Christmas tree. It's like these guys are just trashing Charlie Brown, calling him a blockhead. That's a good insult. If you need to chirp like a buddy for fun, the Blockhead is a funny one. So I thought that was a good movie. And then I think Elf is just unbeaten. I feel like I've watched Elf maybe too many times, but still unbeaten. It will make me laugh every time. And what's my favorite part from the Elf movies? When they're drinking in the mailroom. There must be another mailroom. And then he finally gets drinking in Francisco. Was that his name? Francisco maybe? They just start drinking and he's laughing at everything. They're telling stories and he's like, oh, I'm 58 years old. What have I done? I'm 38 years old. What have I done with my life? And he's like, you're young, man. My Papa Elf didn't make Grandmaster Elf until he was 456. And the guy just starts dying laughing. That's a good joke. So, yeah, if you're feeling old, you could still make Papa Elf, Headmaster Elf in 400 years. And then A Christmas Story. Daddy's going to kill Ralphie. Hiding under the cupboard. Just so good. Love A Christmas Story. It's on, 24 hours on Christmas Day. That's always a good one. Honestly, didn't watch that one this year, but if you haven't watched it, go watch it. Everyone's watched it. Maybe not everyone. Okay, what else we got? The Christmas shopping. Oh, it's so hard. Every year I feel like it's really hard. You always want to do, I'm going to start looking for gifts way earlier, and then you never do. Or you can't wait. I don't know. So you always end up doing late Christmas shopping. And I'm getting to the point where it's like, I just need to start writing checks to everybody. I have more respect for that uncle or grandma or whoever that just gives you money every year. You spend it on what you want. Because it's like, most of the people in my life just get what they want. And if they don't get what they want, it's probably way too expensive for me to buy. I don't know. So it's hard. But one trick that I learned this year, thanks, Jocelyn, every mall, or actually not every mall, I went to 2 malls. We went to one mall once and then the other mall another time. They both have a local handmade goods store where they have little, what am I trying to say? Little stations that all of these different local handmade either artists or farmers, if it's some sort of like honey or pottery people, or they have all these little trinkets that are locally handmade by small businesses, and it's just like hundreds of different little stations of different things. That's a good place because you're going to get all the local stuff, which is plus on gift Christmas presents, and there's just a lot of variety. So those are good places to go to get gifts. I got pretty much all my gifts there this year. Racing during the holidays. We talked about all the sickness from the holidays, and I think racing between like Thanksgiving and maybe the second or the third week of January, probably not a good idea. Definitely not an A race or like an ABC race, just because you got sickness, you got all these things you got to do, you got family get-togethers. It's that time that you're going to get sick, so you're either going to get sick, or you're going to have to avoid people, or you're going to be so busy that you can't train like you wanted to. For me, I signed up for the Winterfell's Tark one year, which I think is the week after Thanksgiving, and it was a race that I trained for a long time, and I ended up getting sick the week before I had COVID or something. Yeah, I think I had COVID, and it was just like, this kind of stinks. I wish, I don't know. Not saying don't do that race or other races, but just know, don't put all your eggs in a basket for races between that time, because your training probably isn't going to be perfect, and you may just have to dodge sickness. So that was one little takeaway from all this sickness stuff going around. And then the last story before we talk about 2026 goals, the Thanksgiving prime rib story. So we had prime rib on Christmas, which I love prime rib. You cook it right, it's just so good. All the spices and stuff, the crisp on top, it's just so good. And so I love having prime rib. But a funny story from a couple years ago, I think it might have been the COVID year. I don't know when it was, but it was one of the first years where we had a small little thing for Thanksgiving, but it wasn't a big thing. And I think it was at my parents' house. So we just had a kind of a small get together with close family, immediate family. And I remember I was loving the prime rib, and I had probably, I think it was 3 of those slices, and they, it depends on how thick you cut them. I probably had close to 2 pounds of just pure, maybe even more, I don't know, just pure meat. And that Thanksgiving, I found out what meat sweats were. I ate 2 to 3 slices of this prime rib, and maybe about 5 minutes after, and it was so good. It was feeling so good going down. I just had to have more. 5 minutes after, my body temperature went through the roof. I started sweating, and literally at my family Thanksgiving thing, I stripped off all of my clothes down to my skivvies. I sat on my dad's big recliner, like every dad has a big recliner. I reclined back, and I said, nobody touch me. Because I had never gotten the meat sweats. If you haven't gotten the meat sweats, it's kind of like a funny little thing. My body was legitimately soaking wet from eating too much meat, too much food. And so if you're eating prime rib in the holidays, don't eat too much, because you may strip down to your skibbies in front of your family. Okay. Those are the big things from today. And yeah, 2026 is around the corner. I think in the next couple episodes, there are a few things I'm going to talk about my personal 2026. But I did want to talk about what is in store for the podcast in 2026. I think this is episode 16. So we're still rolling along. We're going to still do the weekly podcasts. That is going to stay consistent. Probably, yeah, hopefully keep getting them out Sunday mornings. But I have lots of ideas for the podcast. I think as far as content, it's just endless. I'm gonna try to cover all the races that I can this year, in New England at least, the big ultra races and some of the short stuff. Gonna stay on top of the FKTs as they happen. We just did that FKT roundup. We're gonna still talk about some hypotheticals. Oh, the mac and cheese results. I'll say this. I did the blind taste test. I did a blind taste test with Annie's and Kraft. This was a couple episodes. It kind of got lost in the weeds. I didn't have enough pots. We're back on it now. I blind taste test chose Kraft, and so did Jocelyn over Annie's regular mac and cheese. So for all the Annie's people, maybe you got to give Kraft a try. But no, really. So that was the results there. But what I wanted to say was, that was kind of like a fun food challenge to do, and I was like, oh, it would be fun to do the white cheddar Annie's, to do more. I can't turn this into a food eating channel. I cannot turn this into a food competition, food eating podcast. It's just not going to be healthy for me, and it's just not. We'll let other people do that. So we're still gonna do some of the fun things, but I don't think it's not gonna be like, how many chicken nuggets can you eat? Who has the best chicken? We're done on that, because we gotta lock it in 2026. But for the podcast, so we still got a lot of fun things we're gonna talk about. We're gonna try to cover the Northeast trail scene as best we can. Races, FKTs, whatever's going on. And then I definitely want to start having people on the podcast. There's lots of stories, and I feel like I've learned a lot of things. I'm going to try to keep sharing things, share stuff about training, my experiences, share the White Mountain stuff. But I also think there's a ton of people with cool stories that just have not told them on podcasts or in the media or whatever before. And so I want to start reaching out and having people come on the podcast. Hopefully people want to come on at this point. I don't know. I mean, I feel like weird asking people to come on the podcast, but yeah, gonna be getting some guests on, and I think it might be hard during the winter because there's not as much going on, not as many events, and people just have to sit in my truck bed. This is where we're gonna keep doing it. So that may be a tough sell in this cold winter, but also I think most of the people that I would want to interview, they would be down for just an hour chat in a truck bed at a trailhead or something. So maybe we still can get people on this winter. But no, there's a handful of people that I think we're going to start having on. So I don't know if it'll be a weekly thing, but hopefully, yeah, we're going to have more people on the podcast and just share some more stories. And I'll probably, still keep my kind of solo episodes or solo thoughts with the guests, like do longer episodes. So yeah, lots of exciting things coming in 2026 regarding the podcast. And again, I've done it a few times. Maybe I'm a broken record, but I appreciate everyone listening. It's very cool that people are listening, and hopefully, well, I'm going to say some things that are stupid, but hopefully I can get some good info out there, get some good stories, entertain a little bit on maybe some long run treadmill. If you're doing some treadmill this winter, entertain while you're just ripping miles on there, and then highlight cool people doing cool things in the mountains, eventually interview cool people doing cool things in the mountains. So that's the plan for the podcast, and I'm excited. And so, yeah, thank you so much for the support. I mean, I don't know that I really thought I would still be... No, I thought I'd still be doing it, but I couldn't have imagined lots of the messages and stuff that I'm getting. So I appreciate everybody. Thanks for the support in 2025, and we will see you in 2026. Peace.